There are monsters, not the ones born from folklore or conjured by imagination, but real, living beings who walk among us, blending into the fabric of everyday life. These predators hide behind ordinary faces, capable of unimaginable cruelty. Today, we uncover the chilling story of one such man, a figure whose darkness knew no bounds and whose actions would leave an entire nation in shock. It was a time of ordinary routines in a city alive with the energy of children's laughter and the innocence of youth. Streets echoed with the playful shouts of children running home from school, friends gathered in parks, and families embraced the comfort of community. But behind this normalcy, a sinister presence was lurking. Slowly, the joyful sounds began to disappear, replaced by whispers of dread. It started subtly, just one child gone. A missing poster was put up, but people told themselves it was a fluke. Then another vanished, and another. Panic spread as the number of missing children grew. Families clung to the hope that their loved ones would be found, while the authorities scrambled to find answers. The city was gripped by fear, yet no one could have imagined the nightmare that was unfolding. At first glance, the man responsible seemed no different from any other. He lived and worked in the community, appearing to lead an unremarkable life. But behind closed doors, hidden from view, he was harboring a twisted and insatiable hunger. He preyed upon the most innocent, snatching children from the streets, luring them into his web of darkness. For years, his actions went unnoticed. The disappearances confounded investigators. The missing children left behind no clues, no patterns, no sign of where they had gone. But beneath this facade of mystery lay a carefully constructed trap, one that he had perfected over time. He was not driven by impulse, but by a cold, calculated desire. Each child was chosen with precision, taken without a trace, leaving their families to agonize over their sudden loss. For the children who fell into his grasp, the horror was unimaginable. The man, devoid of any empathy or compassion, treated them as nothing more than pawns in his sick game. His cruelty knew no bounds, and what happened within the walls of his home would later be revealed as one of the most heinous acts of violence ever uncovered. For years, the man was able to carry out his unspeakable crimes, deceiving all those around him. He was meticulous, covering his tracks, ensuring that no suspicion ever fell on him. It was only by chance that his reign of terror would come to an end. A child, intended to be his next victim, narrowly escaped, providing the first shred of evidence that would unravel the mystery behind the city's missing children. When investigators finally arrived at his home, what they uncovered was beyond comprehension. The sight that greeted them was one of pure horror. The remains of nearly 100 children were found, their lives mercilessly stolen. It was a scene that shocked even the most seasoned detectives, a discovery that left the entire nation in mourning. The revelation of his crimes shattered the community. People struggled to understand how someone could commit such atrocities and remain hidden for so long. How could such evil exist so close to home? Neighbors, colleagues, and even the authorities were left questioning everything they thought they knew. The man had led a double life, presenting himself as an unassuming figure while hiding a monstrous secret. The trial that followed was swift, and justice, though it could never undo the damage, was served. The man was sentenced to face the full weight of the law, and his name would be forever etched into the annals of history as one of the most reviled figures. But no punishment could ever bring back the innocent lives he had taken. No sentence could heal the wounds left on the families of those lost. This case was more than just a story of horror. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that evil can hide in plain sight. The man had been someone people passed by on the street, someone they thought they knew, but beneath the surface lay a darkness so deep that no one could have predicted it. The loss felt by the families of the victims is immeasurable. Their children were ripped away in the most brutal manner, and no amount of time will ever ease that pain. These were lives filled with potential, children who would never grow up, never experience the joys of life, all because of one man's twisted desires. Today, we remember the victims. Their voices, silenced far too soon, still echo in the hearts of those left behind. Their lives were stolen, but their memory remains. This case stands as a stark reminder of the evil that can exist in the world, and of the importance of remaining vigilant, always protecting the innocent. In the end, we can only hope that the light of those lost will shine brighter than the darkness that sought to consume them. What made him like this? So here is his story. In a city once filled with the innocence of children's laughter, shadows began to gather. Children, who should have been playing in the streets, suddenly began to disappear. Panic spread through the community as families realized something terrible was happening. One child went missing, then another. The pattern was unmistakable, but the truth behind it was even more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Behind these disappearances was a man whose external life seemed ordinary, but whose inner world was marked by unimaginable darkness. His past was filled with pain and trauma. Born into a family where love was scarce, he grew up in a home filled with neglect and abuse. From a young age, he was exposed to violence, both emotional and physical, shaping a mind that would later spiral into madness. Isolation became his constant companion. As he grew older, his sense of alienation deepened, and the seeds of cruelty began to take root. Lacking empathy and disconnected from the world around him, he withdrew further into a dark fantasy world where power and control over the innocent became his only focus. This psychological descent was gradual but relentless. Mental health experts who later examined him described a man whose mind was fractured, a blend of deep-seated rage and an almost robotic detachment from reality. Diagnosed with severe personality disorders, he exhibited traits of both psychopathy and sociopathy. His need to dominate and destroy grew out of a festering hatred for the world that had, in his view, betrayed him. As an adult, he appeared quiet and unremarkable. But behind that facade, his mind was consumed by an insidious hunger. He found a way to act on his darkest desires, targeting children, the purest and most innocent members of society, as the outlet for his inner torment. With calculated precision, he began luring children into his web, all while leading a double life that allowed him to remain undetected. Each abduction was planned meticulously, carried out with chilling patience and method. No one could have guessed the horrors happening just beyond their sight in the walls of his seemingly normal home. His mind, consumed by evil, sought control, power, and the destruction of innocence. As he took more victims, the scope of his crimes expanded. Inside his home, he created a nightmarish scene, keeping tokens of his victims, souvenirs of the suffering he caused. It was only when a fortunate break in the case occurred that the full extent of his atrocities came to light. When authorities finally raided his home, what they found defied all understanding. The remains of nearly 100 children were unearthed, a grotesque testament to the depth of his depravity. Investigators were left wondering how such a person could carry out these crimes, hidden in plain sight, without suspicion. In examining his life, mental health professionals would later point to a lifetime of untreated mental illness combined with profound trauma as key factors in his descent into this monstrous behavior. He lacked the ability to connect with others on an emotional level, and his broken psyche only allowed for cruelty to fill the void where compassion should have been. But mental illness alone cannot fully explain the evil he committed. While his background offers some insight into his fractured mind, nothing can justify the horrors he inflicted. The man made choices, each one leading further down a path of destruction, each one bringing unimaginable pain to the families he shattered. In the end, his actions were driven by more than just psychological damage. They were the result of a mind that had chosen to embrace darkness, to feed on the suffering of the innocent. His mental health played a role, but the evil that lurked within him grew into a monster.